Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being here. Nice to see you. We've got some folks on Zoom and about maybe 15 or so people here at Common Ground. So let's begin with a guided meditation like we did last time. Nice to see you. Folks on Zoom and about, there you go.
We can just
You can close that, yeah. So we'll begin make sure to speak up and just let me know if you can't hear me. Yeah. So let's find a comfortable posture. We'll be sitting for about 15 minutes. I'll say a little bit more about posture after the guided meditation, but being upright and being relaxed are really the two main components. So just finding a comfortable posture for yourself. The eyes can be closed or gently gazing about a meter or so in front of us, whatever's most conducive to being relaxed and also present. Remembering this intention of being aware. Remembering that there's a body here that we can be aware of. Not the idea of the body, but the actual physical, somatic sensations. What it feels like to have a body right now, just as it is. And we'll do a body scan meditation like we did last week. So we'll begin simply receiving sensations in the head and face. Noticing any tension in the brow or around the eyes. And we're not trying to change any of the sensations, but we're just recognizing that they're happening here and now, and that the mind can be aware that the head feels like this right now. And we can practice a non-judgmental awareness, simply receiving the sensations in the head, including the back of the head, the forehead, the face, the jaw, and also the mouth, the lips, whether they're touching or open, the tongue, wherever it's placed. Feeling the sensations in the head and face. We're not trying to get anywhere or have a particular experience, but we're just cultivating moment by moment this receptive awareness to the sensations in the head and face. What does the head and face feel like now? And can that be okay, however it is? Just receiving the sensations in the head and face. Noticing that the mind does have this capacity to be intimate, interested in the ordinary sensations of the head and face. Moving now to the neck and throat. Again, simply receiving whatever sensations we feel there. And we be okay with the sensations in the neck and throat right now, just as they are. Feeling the back of the neck, the sides, and the front. Feeling the inside of the throat. And simply knowing what sensations are already here to be known in the neck and throat. Moment by moment, we're tracking the ordinary sensations that we feel in the throat, the neck. Moving now to the tops of the shoulders, the collarbones, feeling the sensations here in the shoulders. Including the back of the neck where it meets the torso and the front, the collarbones again. The tops of the shoulders and the shoulder joints. Just receiving whatever sensations we find when we turn our attention to the shoulders, the tops of the shoulders. Being right with the sensations, not our thoughts about the body, not our thoughts about the shoulders, but what are the actual sensations? What does it feel like? And moving now down from the shoulders, including the arms, whatever we feel when we turn our attention to the arms, both arms, feeling the upper arm, the bend in the elbows, feeling the lower arm, what sensations are present as we turn our attention to the arms. And including the hands, fingers, wrists, hands making contact wherever they're placed. Simply receiving the sensations in the hands now. And returning to the torso, feeling the upper torso and upper back. Sensations present here. Including the sides of the upper torso, the armpits, moving to the middle of the torso, the diaphragm, middle of the back, sides of the middle torso. Simply receiving whatever sensations are here in the mid torso. Including now the lower torso, the belly, abdomen, kidneys, lower back, including the whole pelvis, floor of the pelvis, the sits bones making contact with the cushion or chair, the belly, receiving the sensations now in the lower torso. Feeling the thighs, sensations in the thighs. And including the knees, shins and calves. Whatever sensations are present in the legs now. Simply receiving. This is what the legs feel like now. And can that be okay? and including the feet, toes, sides of the feet, ankles, heels, and soles of the feet. Whatever sensations we find as we turn our attention to the feet. Now being aware of the whole body, sitting, not our idea of the body, but a felt sense of the body sitting here. Simply receiving the sensations present as we turn our attention to the whole body. Seeing if we can be aware and let the sensations of the body be, not have to get involved or judge, evaluate. Simply receive whatever sensations we notice in the whole body. And for the last few seconds of the meditation, letting go of directing our attention and simply being interested in awareness, whatever we're aware of, whatever the mind's naturally aware of. You can practice with your eyes open for the last few seconds if you wish. Simply knowing what the mind is knowing and not being involved for or against whatever the mind naturally is knowing. So feel free to take a minute to stretch your limbs, stand if you need to. Well, thanks again, everyone, for being here. So I'll say a little bit now about posture. The most important points, like I said at the beginning, are to be comfortable, but also to be upright and alert. So those are really the most important principles, and there's no one right way to sit. But there are a few more specific pointers that I'll give. So if you're sitting on a chair, Generally, it's good to have your feet flat on the floor, and so you might sit near the front of the chair, and you want to have your knees at a 90-degree angle. So, and have your knees out, and then your feet flat. And also part of that is to be not leaning against the back of the chair. So if you need some support for your lower back, you can put a cushion or roll up a blanket. But just that effort to stay upright, where we need to make just some small effort, physical effort to stay upright, can help bring interest into the mind, as opposed to if we're just kind of leaning back, the mind tends to want to go to sleep. And similar principles apply when you're sitting on a cushion. So generally you want your hips higher than your knees a little bit, so that'll help prevent your knees and legs from falling asleep. So playing with the height of your cushion so that you have your hips a bit higher than your knees. And that also will result in a bit of a natural curve in your lower back. And then besides that, the same principle of uprightness. So not slouched, but just that little effort to be upright, to have the spine stacked on top, one vertebrae on top of the other. So just a few pointers in that regard, but it's not something to worry too much about. Generally just those principles of being comfortable, relaxed, but also alert, and just the balance of that, and just being aware of our posture throughout a period of meditation, because we're making that little effort to stay upright, can be a really useful meditation object, just to be aware of the posture and how it might change throughout the sit. We may start out upright, and then we may start to slouch a bit. So just that mindfulness, that awareness of the posture can be a great object of meditation. And it really can teach us about the relationship between the mind and body as well, if we're too tight or maybe too relaxed. So I want to say a little bit about motivation and practice. Like we said last week, starting any new habit is hard because we're creatures of habit. And so thinking about and having some relationship to what our motivation is to practice can really support us. Like, why am I sitting here? What does this mean for me? And we all come probably with slightly different motivations, intentions to practice, but just the following the instructions and just doing the practice of being aware in this, the instructions, like we say, this non-judgmental, present, receptive mode, it sort of has its own effect in a way independent of our motivation. So we may come, maybe not knowing a lot about meditation and having an idea or some expectation, 6 weeks, by the end of it, be much calmer, or whatever. We may have these expectations or hopes. And it's true that a lot of us come to meditation wanting more calm, more peace, less stress. And this kind of meditation does teach us about the causes for stress and the causes for release. Even like I was just saying, even in just being aware of our body and our posture, we begin to notice, oh, there's tension here maybe I wasn't even aware of. I'm holding my shoulders up, or I'm clenching my jaw. So it's true that if we're more aware, we'll be more aware of the stress and potentially the causes for stress. So this is what the practice is about being freer from stress in our lives, and of all kinds. But our motivation and our understanding of how that unfolds really develops just through applying ourselves to the instructions. So in a way, we can put our intentions aside or our motivations aside and just follow the instructions. You know, what is it like to be aware in this really simple way? It can seem so simple, like how could this actually have a positive effect? But in doing the practice, we start to see the effect, the benefits, what we call in Buddhism, the seclusion that we get, even in a very ordinary way, like in doing the body scan meditation we just did, to just be with the sensations in the head for even just a second. There's a temporary seclusion from the ways that we ordinarily spend our time and things that we ordinarily think about and get caught up in. And just that, those first tastes of that possibility of being not asleep, but both aware and interested and present, that balance of those two qualities of being interested and being relaxed can just give us the first taste of not just a result from meditation, but a way of being that is really functional and is really supportive for putting down our stressful habits. So just in doing the practice, we'll find our motivation may change and our understanding of stress and how stress is released will change just through seeing what it means to be aware, what awareness allows for, and what it prevents. You know, and to be really aware, we have to put down our habits of getting caught up in thought just to drive home, for example, in a mindful way, to really be there with it. So there's a putting down that's kind of the first taste of peace and of understanding the causes for peace and for the release of stress. So we're really working on the mind and the qualities in the mind. So we're not just practicing to have a certain experience, like to have some really big experience of peace, although that can happen. We're more working on getting to know our own minds, and they're wholesome. We say wholesome and skillful in Buddhism. It's a translation of a Pali word that can mean either skillful or wholesome. So leading in the direction of more happiness and less stress. So we get to know that and we cultivate those qualities in the mind that's being aware. So really what we're working on is the qualities of the mind, and primarily qualities of awareness, of presence, and of stability of mind. So this relaxation and this gathering of the mind that happens just through being aware in a moment-to-moment way. And the reason that we're cultivating our mind in this way is because our mind is our tool of observation. It's really what we use all day long to do everything. So it really matters, the quality of our mind. And this is why this practice can be so transformative, because we're sort of going to the heart of our experience, this mind, this awareness, and what its qualities are. So that's one way to talk about the aim, is we're cultivating wholesome, skillful qualities in our mind. And we do that simply through cultivating these intentions, these new habits, like being present, like cultivating a stability of mind, an ongoing interest in the way things are. You say the way things are, and that it's just a way of pointing to not the way we think things are or our thoughts about things, but what is it like here and now? How's the body? What's the mood? So just these ways to come more close to our direct experience. one teacher, Ajahn Sumedho, a Buddhist monk originally from Seattle, who's an important teacher in this insight meditation tradition, said, instead of following our heart, which is advice that we often get, it's more a matter of training our heart. So that's really the teachings from the Buddha, is that it's not even just about uncovering some basic goodness, although we can see that this mind does have goodness, and that's part of what we are tuning into, but it also has less skillful qualities, impatience, anger. So it's a matter of training our heart, and that's really the potential that these teachings offer in this very gradual, ordinary way. But it's through that mindfulness and wisdom that we actually start to see our mind more clearly. And this is why the training is really emphasized, because it's not enough to just understand something intellectually, but it's sort of, like I said, the tool of our observation. We're developing the kind of mind that has the presence, that has the continuity of awareness, that has the stability, that has the interest and the non-judgmental, so not sort of less bias in the observing mind, in order to see our experience more clearly, feel it more clearly. And we'll talk a lot more about this as the weeks go on, just what a stable, ongoing awareness allows for. But one just short description of that, or word for that, is insight, which is why we call this an insight meditation center. And that can sound like a big conceptual thing, but it can be as simple, like I was saying, as just realizing, oh, my shoulders have been, clenched for a minute, and just that awareness is what illuminates that, and wisdom is what allows us to let go of what's not helpful. But as meditators, as practitioners of mindfulness, we can think that our job is just to gather the data, just to be aware in this interested, present way, and we're gathering data, and then at a certain point there's enough data and wisdom lets go of some habit that's not skillful. So this is really the direction of our practice. The Buddha said something like, all along, in the beginning and the middle and the end of this mindfulness practice, it all has the same taste, which is the taste of freedom. And that's something we can check out for ourselves, whether just in, even though it can seem kind of ordinary or boring or something, to pay attention, like in the body scan, to the sensations in the head, but just being on the lookout for that flavor of liberation, of freedom, just the ordinary liberation and freedom from the usual kind of monotony of our repetitive thoughts, or ways we get caught up, or just kind of mindlessness and daydreaming. To really be present is a liberation, a temporary liberation from all our usual kind of ways of worrying and planning that can feel so deadening if we really tune into them. And then all along, what that presence of mind illuminates is just more and more understanding of how the mind works, how stress arises, how stress ceases. So this is really, a path of more and more freedom, more and more ease that arises, not just through wanting ease, but because of wisdom. Because wisdom, this very earthy wisdom, not just wisdom that we read in a book, but direct seeing of, oh, the mind's getting tight, the body's getting tight. Oh, that doesn't need to happen. Wisdom, putting something down. So maybe I'll just end this little talk with one little description from a teacher, Sayadaw Tejaniya, a Burmese monk, sort of talking about this, why we practice. So someone asked him, what are the benefits of this practice? He said, in a nutshell, you will experience and be able to understand things you have never experienced nor understood before. And that's in the direction of liberation, because the sort of working hypothesis is we get caught up in stress in unnecessary ways because of delusion, what's called delusion in Buddhism, because of not seeing things with this kind of balanced, present moment, stable awareness. And it's just through cultivating that we start to learn something, learn the most useful, direct understanding about this very mind. So that's the direction of the practice. And I think I'm turning it over to Mark now for a guided meditation.
Stand for a moment, just to stretch the legs out. I'm assuming you heard me at online. And even in that movement of standing and stretching, whatever you're going to do with your body, just notice, like what Gabe was just saying, like usually we're just not aware of moving and stretching, like we're thinking about, but just to like be in the body is a bit of an insight, because we're normally not interested in the ordinary experience of stretching and really connecting. We're very quickly in our interpretation, and then from there, who knows where. And when you feel comfortable, you can just come back to sitting. Don't rush, but settle back in eventually. Find a posture that feels good enough. It won't be perfect. We're going to be doing a longer meditation for about a little less than 30 minutes. And like Gabe mentioned, just some posture that supports the mind being both alert and relaxed, interested and relaxed. And it can be a nice habit to have at the beginning of your formal sitting times to do a few longer, deeper, easy breaths. So you're not forcing anything, you're just taking the time it takes to fill the lungs, feeling what you feel, and then taking the time to empty the lungs, and again, simply feeling what you feel as you do that. As if you have all the time in the world to fill and empty the lungs. And eventually allow the breath to continue on its own. We can be thankful that the body knows how to breathe. The breathing process doesn't depend on you or me managing it. So just trusting the body to breathe, however that might be. Doesn't mean it's going to be a perfectly smooth breath. We just turn it over. And like we did last week, we'll take a few minutes and we'll work with hearing as an anchor for the present moment awareness. And we're not trying to hear any particular sound. It's more of a general opening to the sensitivity of the ears. And the ears just naturally hear. And it's important to recognize, if you can, that you don't have to try to hear. You don't have to want to hear. Hearing's just happening. And of course, it's possible that we would forget to pay attention to the hearing. But the hearing, that capacity of hearing, is happening. It's natural. It's a natural sensitivity. Just experiment for another minute or so. Just letting the hearing be. And it's a very particular skill to know how to be or learn how to be intimate with something ordinary like hearing. How to be both interested and relaxed at the same time. And again, it will be somewhat of a challenge to keep hearing in mind. So we're developing that muscle, that mental muscle of non-distraction. And it's mostly about this mental quality of interest. We're choosing to be interested in something ordinary, hearing. Hearing is being known. And you can even use that phrase from time to time if it helps you sustain this simple interest in the experience of hearing. Hearing is being known. And the mind will be secluded from whatever else it would be knowing. And it's just being intimate with the hearing. And we also learn how to begin again and again and again when whatever it might be draws the attention into some drama, to thinking, reacting, or whatever. And then eventually you'll notice that the mind isn't with the hearing. And then again, you can remember, oh yeah, hearing is being known. It's like this now. We'll just see if we can be both intimate, interested, and at ease and relaxed. Just letting it happen. You can bring that same receptive, open quality now as we recognize the experience of the sitting body and practice being open to the totality of the sitting body, the physicality of the sitting body. It may feel overwhelming initially, at least, but just maybe it's safe. Even if the sensations are unpleasant, maybe it's safe to simply feel whatever it is that the body feels like now. And that river of feeling, the sensations of the body, just keeps shifting and moving and changing, and that's okay. So in a way, we're learning that it's safe to be vulnerable or exposed to the sensations of the sitting body. Nothing left out. And of course, there may be subtle movements, but we have this intention to be at ease and relatively still with whatever's moving as sensation. And part of what's moving, of course, in our bodies is the natural process of breathing in and breathing out. So now we'll be working with a more specific or exclusive meditation object, which is just the ordinary sensations of breathing in and breathing out, just the ordinary breathing process. We're not trying to breathe in any particular way. And you might feel that process as a rising and falling of the abdominal wall, or some folks feel it as the touching as the air goes in and then out of the nostrils. Any number of ways to feel that natural process of breathing in and out. So however it's easy for you. Just to sense breathing in and then just to sense the breathing out. And of course, we have so many different habits to want to think about things from the past and the future and plan and problem solve. But now we're asking the mind to do this one simple thing, keeping this natural process of breathing in and out in mind, the physicality or the sensations that come along with the breathing in and the breathing out. So in a sense, we're simply tracking. We're not managing or controlling the breathing process, just keeping it in mind. And to do that, we have to let go of everything else. So be willing to begin again and again. Don't get frustrated when the mind wanders. That's part of the practice, is to notice the mind is thinking about something or doing something else. And then just remember the training. So in a relaxed way, gentle way, just feel the body and then notice the movement of the breath in the body. And just use that effort of interest. Be interested in that ordinary process of breathing in or breathing out. And just let everything else happen in the background. You don't have to repress anything or get rid of anything. And just explore in this gentle way what it would be to have this continuity of present moment awareness, using our meditation object, this natural process of breathing in and out. And when you get a little continuity, a little momentum in this relaxed but persistent way. Notice what that feels like. You might notice a subtle pleasure of this mind being secluded from everything else. So there's a kind of simplicity in that continuity, and that feels good. And we're interested in the actual physicality of the breathing in and the breathing out, not a mental image or our thoughts about it. They may be there, some mental image or our thoughts about the breath, but use your relaxed interest to be interested in the actual sensations of that breathing in process and the breathing out. And remember, the breath can get quite refined, so the sensations will be very subtle. But that's okay, it just helps us train the mind to be interested when things get subtle. In a sense, we're learning to put down the world and to simply be aware of something simple and ordinary with a whole heart, a fullness of attention. And to notice that this is healing in this subtle way. To put everything else down and just to be aware of breathing in, breathing out, and to begin again and again when the mind wanders. Don't turn distractions into the enemy. Just be friendly. Oh, yeah. Sometimes the mind reacts, or sometimes the mind thinks, or sometimes the mind does what it does. Sometimes the body is like this. So we make peace with whatever the distraction, whatever it was that pulled the attention away. Oh, yeah, it's just that experience being known, just that reaction being felt. Oh, and here's the body, here's the breath moving in the body. And simply connecting, sustaining that present moment awareness. And if something keeps getting in the way, if you find it difficult to be with the breath with any continuity, then at some point it may be appropriate to simply ask, well, what is it that the mind is knowing? Well, what is it that's in the way? What's happening? What's the mind knowing? And just clearly acknowledge what's predominant, where the attention is going, and acknowledge it as something being felt in the present moment or something being known. It's like this. This is what's being known. In a sense, asking for attention. Okay. So then, in a sense, the distraction itself becomes the object of awareness. And we just feel what that is without getting entangled or confused by it. It's just a phenomena, present moment experience being known, being felt. Feels like this now. So in that sense, we're making peace with whatever it is that's predominant, whatever it is that's drawing the attention. And we're seeing it with wisdom. It's something being known in the present moment. And we can sense that it's something that comes and goes on its own. Like everything else, things come, then they go. So we allow nature, the nature of impermanence, to take care of these so-called obstacles. And when you can come back to your anchor. But at this time, near the end of the set, we're going to open the eyes, if you don't mind. We're not looking around, we're just gazing down a little bit in front of us. Soft gaze with our eyes. And we let go of our training anchor, the breath. You still might be aware of it, but we're not intentionally keeping it in mind. Present with the totality of our experience. We just sense what this present moment experience is made up of. One of the things it's made up of is seeing as being known. So just tuning in for a few seconds, noticing the sensitivity to sight. We're not looking at stuff, we're just noticing the experience of seeing. And of course, hearing is being known as well. So there's seeing being known and hearing being known. Excuse me. Definitely hearing being known. And of course, feeling the multitude of sensation, subtle and gross, bodily sensation, full range, pleasant sensation, unpleasant, neutral, sensitive to seeing, sensitive to hearing, sensitive to the tactile experience, to some degree smelling and tasting, probably relatively subtle. And still we can sense smelling and tasting. And also aware of mental activity. What's the mind doing? For just a few more seconds, just opening to the totality of our experience right now. And see if we can just let everything be. Can we be both interested and relaxed, allowing things to be? You might have noticed how Gabe and I sometimes put our hands together like this. I learned this as a Catholic. And it's just a gesture from the East that it's kind of a sign of respect or gratitude. Feel free to use it if you want. Obviously, you don't have to use it. It's not part of the practice, but some of us like doing it. And some of us have practiced with monastics and in Asia, and there's a lot of this. It becomes our habit. So if you don't like it, you can just bear with it, bear with me as we do it. So I'll pass it back to Gabe for some discussion time.
Yeah, so we'll just open it up now to hear from people. Yeah, it looks like there's someone in the room. And if you don't mind coming up that way, and I'll just pass you the mics. That way people online can hear you. Thanks.
This is the important one because that's for the people online. Oops.
I find it a lot, I'm finding it a lot easier to be calm and peaceful and attentive and focused if I'm lying down than if I'm sitting in a chair. And the reason is that I'm always somewhat uncomfortable in a chair, and that I'll be in a comfortable pose so I can focus and be calm for a little bit, and then my lower back will start hurting, and so I'll need to move a little bit, and then my leg will be uncomfortable. So it's hard for me to even achieve like continuity, awareness of continuity of breathing when all these uncomfortable bodily sensations are kind of in my face. And that's quite different from another problem, which is letting my mind wander. That's much easier for me to deal with than the bodily discomfort of sitting in a chair. So is that something I should be trying to overcome, or what?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for that. There's a certain amount of discomfort that we will probably just experience through being still, but some of the points on posture can be helpful with kind of starting. So really, before we start the formal meditation, we want to do whatever we can to have as comfortable a sitting posture as possible. So some of those points I mentioned about sitting in a chair, sitting near the front of the chair, having your knees at a 90-degree angle, your feet on the floor. If you can, kind of the hips elevated a bit so that there's this kind of, basically the hips are higher than the knees, so they're going down a bit, and slight curve in your lower back, and then everything else from your hips up is just stacked and upright. And then from that point, then just kind of relaxing into that and just making those adjustments to start. But even with that, there will probably be some discomfort. And generally, the instructions are, when there's discomfort, that we can also be aware of that. And if it rises to a certain point where it just feels like the mind is just really doesn't like it and it's really uncomfortable, then it's okay to move, and we can move mindfully and even be aware as we're moving. And when the body's uncomfortable and we notice that, we can notice the discomfort and the intention to move. So there's a balance between that intention to be still, which really is supportive. So kind of one thing I heard in what you were sharing was just how the discomfort and the moving in response to the discomfort can get in the way of the continuity of awareness. So we do want to cultivate this continuity of awareness, and we don't want to just be moving in response to every discomfort. So there is a value of cultivating stillness, and just to understand that even with setting up, doing what we can to set up a comfortable posture, there will be some discomfort. And the question is sort of, is this discomfort that is just arises because the body is still and the body's not used to being still, and can we relax with that discomfort? Or at a certain point, is it just too much and the mind is just can't be aware? Seems like the only thing we're being aware of is that we're kind of fueling this aversion, this dislike of the discomfort, and then moving mindfully and being aware of that. Yeah, I don't know if you had other thoughts you wanted to add to that, Mark.
Well, one of the things I was thinking to do is just say, anybody else have that experience? And I'm guessing we'd all raise our hand, right? And that's really important, because it means that physical pain isn't something to sort of like, okay, we got the sacred teaching on pain and now we're ready to move on to the important stuff. It's really one of the main teachers. And what is it teaching us? It's teaching us a radically different way of being with sense experience. So normally, the very strongly conditioned idea that we don't even realize is just a conditioned habit is pain is bad, right? We all have that. We just totally believe that. And on a certain level, pain is bad. But when we can, before the pain gets overwhelming, like Gabe was saying, we want to be interested in it. But interested in it free of the idea that it's bad. So when we say interested, it means really interested. It doesn't mean like I'm interested because I'm told I should be interested in it and maybe it will make it go away or make it not as painful, right? So that's the key, is when we take our sitting posture, we work with whatever shows up until we can't work with it. Then we might move, we might even lie down like you said, change our posture. Another thing people might do, like if you want to sit for 30 minutes but you can't sit still for 30 minutes, you might sit for 10 minutes, you might stand for 10 minutes, you might lie down for 10 minutes or something like that. There's advantages and disadvantages for every posture. For most people, sitting is a nice balance between supporting alertness and being relatively comfortable. And just find a chair that there's enough comfort. But it's okay to experiment with lying down meditation, but it takes some real training to be able to do that for more than 10 minutes before the mind gets dull and sleepy. Now there are exceptions, and people who have a lot of physical pain then can use the lying down meditation because the pain will keep them from getting sleepy if they have some of the pain when they're lying down. But no matter what, we have to, before pain triggers that sort of defensive relationship with it, like we feel put upon by the pain. And the way we're conditioned now, we're put upon pain before it even starts. It's like, oh yeah, sitting's painful. And we're already in a defensive stance, and we haven't even gotten to the place where we meditate. We're already like, oh, it's going to get me. So we want to know that we have to give ourselves permission, like if it gets overwhelming, this is what I can do, so that before it gets overwhelming, we can really be interested. Because we want to have that experience of being with pain without the not liking it. And that's possible for all of us. Like, here's some homework, and we'll come back, Gabe and I will come back to this topic, especially week 4, where we look at obstacles to meditation. But a little bit of homework is, can you, and this doesn't have to be in a formal sit, it could be any time you're feeling a little cold or a little hot, or you bump your head on the kitchen cabinet, or mosquitoes bit you and now your bite itches, and so then you can play with this, like, can I be aware of the pain? Can I be so open and interested and relaxed with the itching of that mosquito bite that I experience that mosquito bite, the itchiness of it, without aversion? This is what that itchiness feels like, or the throbbing of having bumped our head. This is what that throbbing feels like without any aversion. Because we want to distinguish the experience of unpleasantness with the not liking. They're two different experiences. And it's really useful to learn how to be with unpleasantness without the aversion. There's a lot of liberation just in that. And it doesn't mean we can't put a sweater on when it's cold or take the sweater off when it's warm. But sometimes there's unpleasantness and there's nothing we can do about it. So to have learned how not to add aversion is really powerful. And then when we get good at that, we can start practicing with really nice, pleasant experiences without wanting it to last. So how to be with something pleasant. Let's say you're going to go home and have a bowl of ice cream, and you really like ice cream, and you're just there, and how to be with the pleasantness of it, really intimate with the experience without any clinging to it, without any dependency on it. So that actually you're going to be more aware of the pleasantness of it, but the mind will be empty of needing it to last, wanting more, needing more, or any of the things that actually are stressful. Yeah, time for another comment or question? What comes to mind in the room, online? Folks online, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you know how to raise your digital hand, you can do that. Questions, but also just experiences from the sits tonight.
Someone here.
Oh, great. Do you mind coming up?
My question, I have a question and then I have a comment. And my question might be jumping to like level 100, so just let me know if I'm, but I'm thinking about the experience of the insight meditations as a moment versus taking the experience of the insight meditations throughout the rest of the day. And my question sort of comes from the place, like sort of the background of that is how I spend my days at my day job. It often feels like a race, like I get to where I work and then I'm just going. And I find that throughout the day, before or after, I'm waiting for the perfect moment or to sit or like the perfect conditions, because I know, or the story I'm telling myself is that throughout the day, there is no moment. However, of course, I feel like that probably isn't true. So I guess I'm just thinking of like how to take the experiences that we are practicing throughout other moments throughout the day that aren't these dedicated moments to sitting, if that makes any sense. And then my other comment was about my comment from last week, which was about the itching. And I would just want to update the group that I really practiced, and there were like a few moments where it just went away, which was fascinating. And I think I like really leaned into thinking about what that felt like, what that itch felt like, and then it just kind of dissolved, and it was really wild. So that was really that was my update that none of you were asking for, but I gave it anyway.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that with us. And just a simple comment, and then I'll pass it to Gabe to maybe say some more. But there's something really powerful about persisting with phenomena that show up, whatever it is, persisting when you're tracking the breath, persisting with pain in the body. And it's really persisting with interest and with a relaxation, or you could even use the word openness. Because that's where the deepening, the insights happen when we persist. There's something really powerful about the continuity, no agenda awareness. The continuity of no agenda awareness is more powerful than we probably imagine. Do you want to respond to the first part?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question about how do we, when there is some interest and some desire for, whatever we're experiencing, maybe in our meditations or what we're hearing about, and then feeling like, oh, there's this big part of my life or this big part of my day where that feels like not accessible, or we're not sure how that would look, how that would make sense there. And I think one answer is just that we practice in formal meditation because those are, like you say, we're setting aside that time, that dedicated time, and the conditions are just simpler because no one's asking us to do anything. So our intention is very clear, this 10, 20, 30 minutes, this is my intention. And we realize even when we put aside that time and we have that clarity, this is my intention, even then, it's still pretty hard to remember to be interested in this simple ongoing way. So I think that just gives us a clue of that what we're cultivating, what we're interested in does take this kind of training, and it's a new habit for most of us. It's not, we may have had moments of mindfulness throughout our life, maybe in some beautiful setting, just really clear, oh yeah, here I am, I'm aware. But in terms of an ongoing conscious cultivation, it's really not for most of us until we come to some tradition like Buddhism or mindfulness, where we're really cultivating that. So I think the point of the formal meditation is to give ourselves the best chance to really get to know what awareness feels like, so that we're more likely to remember that what that feels like, and that it's possible in other moments in our day. But in other moments in our day, there are also other intentions, right? We need to do things, but we can still have that intention to want to be aware and be interested. But in our formal meditation, we'll get clear there what that quality is. What is awareness? What is it like to be aware versus not being aware? What is it like to be aware versus being lost in thought? And the more we get to know that, the more we'll see that it's independent of whatever it is that's being known. So we start with things that are somewhat maybe easier to know, like sensations in the body. We can be with those in a simple way. And because it's harder to be aware of thinking, and kind of because we tend to get lost in our thoughts. So that's just one practical tip, is to be aware of the body throughout our day, and whatever moment, maybe if there's these transition moments, a moment, between one task and the other, walking one place to the other, just not in a way that has to be super focused or directed, but just to take that second, oh, how's the body? How's the mind? So there's these kind of check-ins, but it does take some practice to be aware in more conceptual activities, in thinking and in talking, and it just takes practice. But I think getting to know that difference between being aware and not being aware, because it's so light in a way, and it's not dependent, it's not like, oh, in the middle of this meeting I have to, close my eyes, but just that difference between being aware of whatever it is that's being known, maybe it's thinking, maybe it's the sensations in the body, then we start to see that can actually maybe is more available than we might think, even as, we're doing everything we need to do. But it's just that, is there interest in this reflective capacity of the mind, even as maybe, we are active. But it does take practice to see that that's possible and have it not get in the way of our activity. So I wouldn't try too hard in activities where we do need to be doing more thinking, but maybe starting in kind of just these transition moments. Like, do we really need to plan the next 5 minutes as we're walking to the bathroom or whatever? So just these moments where we may feel more at ease, like there's less demands on us, just to take that opportunity. Well, is there any harm? Is there any danger to just feeling how I'm feeling now, feeling the body? So that's one way we can build those in throughout our days, kind of these little check-in moments. Yeah, thanks for that question. We just have a few minutes left. I'll turn it to Mark.
So are we aware? Because can we recognize there's awareness now? And it doesn't require any kind of Buddhist affect, or even like straightening the spine or whatever we might want to do. And we really want to befriend it, as we get more familiar with this capacity of being aware of the present moment. So we're just recognizing that the mind is knowing. We're recognizing what the mind is knowing. That's what we mean by awareness. And so, just a going away comment before we end tonight is just this, both in your sits, but what Gabe and Rachel, is that your name? Maddie? Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're talking about also during your day, many times this week, just in English we say sometimes dropping in, but just find a way to begin again. Because that's what they've discovered about memorizing things. I was just talking to my wife, who teaches at Macalester College, and she had to give a lecture today, and as she walks, it's about hour and 50-minute walk to work, but she could give the lecture a couple times, and then there was had it down, right? Because there's something about on the fly recognizing awareness that we really start understanding, like Gabe was saying, what it is and what it isn't. The more we, in ordinary moments, don't try to do awareness, it isn't something we do actually, it's something we recognize. We're recognizing it. So is there awareness? Can you recognize the awareness that's here? Yeah, this mind, this experience is being known, isn't it? So just make that your homework too. Just as many times during your formal sitting times, and other times just starting over, don't feel bad that you have to start over. Just, it's an opportunity to starting over is such an important thing, because we do so many weird neurotic things when we start over, because we have a wrong idea of what it is. We think Buddhist awareness practice is me doing something, like focusing my attention on something. But that's not what we're doing. We're recognizing something about the mind, and then we're keeping that in mind. And that thing is, we call it awareness or mindfulness. Sati is the Pali word. And it really has something to do with this reflective knowing that it's like this. And the last thing is, just know, like I think Gabe mentioned last week, it's easy to be gung-ho and then come next Tuesday think, I don't think so. So really give yourself the 6 weeks and give yourself a little time at least every day, even if it's just a couple minutes. That's enough. But 50 minutes is better and 30 minutes is fantastic. So do what you can, put a little time in every day, then have all these little moments during the day, and then bring your comments and your interesting experiences to report back with the group next week, because we learn a lot from what people have shared, like tonight. So thanks for coming, everyone. Nice to be with you all. And Gabe and I will see you next week.